Let's add a lens for colonialism. Colonialism relies on divide and rule, since colonial elites are outnumbered and far from home. Crucially, colonialism's playbook targets the contradictions of pre-colonial societies. So first, bribe pre-colonial rulers. Pre-existing hierarchies are already willing and able to rule. It shouldn't be a surprise that Vietnamese dynastic rulers had a history of, at times, leveraging a larger foreign power, especially China, as a powerful patron to fend off domestic rivals, basically acting as a foreign arbitrator, creating a patron-client relationship on this top level of the class pyramid. From Goscha's Vietnam A New History, quote, "Resistance broke out often when the Chinese court pursued assimilationist policies or tried to impose direct rule instead of remembering the advantages of accommodation, flexibility, and indirect rule. The Tron sisters have gone down in history for their heroic rebellion between 39 to 43 CE." End quote. Second, impose rigid identity categorizations. Weaponize identity politics to exacerbate and manufacture differences, especially ethnicity and gender, thus hiding shared interests, especially class. Western colonialism has been particularly systematic with this. Third, bribe pre-colonial minorities who lacked integration. Smaller social groups, which colonial categorization exaggerates or even manufactures, can be manipulated into greater dependency for colonial privileges and protection. This can even occur when the group is relatively well off as individuals. Privileged roles in colonial administration include, first, collecting taxes. This is called tax farming and revenue farming. Farming here is not about agriculture, it's about harvesting money. Second, there's money lending. This also relates to usury, which is lending at high interest. Third, colonial military and policing. For a detailed case study of this, see my notes for the book Bound by War: How the United States and the Philippines Built America's First Pacific Century. Now, these minorities become the visible face of colonial exploitation. There are plenty of examples in feudalism and capitalism as well. Thus, these groups can conveniently be used as scapegoats during crises. This relates with the stereotype of Jewish moneylenders under medieval European kings. For an accessible article, see The Truth About Medieval Jewish Moneylending in England by Howard Morris. The Southeast Asian version is Chinese merchants and tax collectors. Both examples weaponize ethnicity, identity politics, to hide class. For example, the ethnic stereotype of the Chinese ethnicity in Southeast Asia omits the masses of poor indentured Chinese migrant labor, the so-called coolies. Fourth, bribe right-wing extremists. This is a combination of the above. Similar to the first tactic, both are politically right-wing, in the sense that they support dominance hierarchies. While they are not pre-existing rulers, right-wing extremists are wannabe rulers. Similar to the second tactic, right-wing extremists also weaponize identity politics to hide class. Similar to the third tactic, right-wing extremists are fringe groups lacking integration. And finally, right-wing extremists are a reflection of colonialism, which itself is right-wing extremism dressed up as gentleman's business and civilizing mission. In summary, colonialism's divide and rule playbook exploits and extends the domestic society's contradictions, in particular class hierarchy. This requires soft power in certain scenarios to attract varying degrees of collaboration. Colonialism relies on local populations to extract their labor and materials, and to administer this extraction. As a side note, it would be interesting to compare this with settler colonialism, which can afford to deploy more hard power to displace and exterminate local populations. We can now take Vietnam's class pyramid, burden it with colonialism, and heated up with war, and see how much stress this puts on the peasant base and beyond. This left a growing political vacuum or social legitimacy for soft power, which Vietnamese communists eventually filled.